G&T show is intended for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. Live long and prosper, bitches.
Are friends with benefits?
Speaking of having a good time, Terry.
Dayton broke the G&T show. This is now the David Mack
Appreciation Hour. You assholes.
What is it about this guy that people love him so much?
With his purple velvet cape and his crown. I thought it was a little much when he had us carry him in the studio on a throne. I am awesome! Look what I have done! Look what I have brought upon the world!
There is an urge to go, yeah.
I heard rumors that you might be working on something else, but we won't pry much. I was going to say
I'm going to pry a little.
Dare you! How dare you ask me to change it? Do you not understand the majesty of my genius? And the guy sitting next to me looked at me like he was, like I'd cramped in his hat.
Yeah, it's the professionalism that sells the show. That's right.
And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to this G&T Supplemental Log. Our special guest this week, Mr. William Leisner, Star Trek author extraordinaire and author extraordinaire. And if you look to my right, your left, you notice we're in our Battle Bridge set this week in honor of Bill. And there she is, in her decked out in her Command Gold TOS uniform, Terry.
That's right. That's right. Command Gold today. That's right.
Command Gold. That's right. And I still say Ivy Doom Kitty looks the best in the uniform, but that's just me. And
you know what? I would agree with you. So there you go.
And my left, your right, and this week, absolutely being timely, as the new Pope was named as we're recording this, dressed in his papal outfit, complete with the pole digger hat, Ceridium.
Kapla!
Look at him.
Can you imagine a Klingon and a mitre?
I know. Mixing Klingon and papal gear and burning incense. It's a beautiful look. So, welcome to the G&T show, Bill.
Thank you. That's quite a welcome.
Now, I want to...
It's kind of like this.
Yeah. You wrote, and I've said this to you in person, so the audience knows I'm not sucking up to you, one of my favorite Star Trek books, Losing the Peace.
Thank you.
And we can talk about that in a little bit, but let's get started right away. You have a new novel coming out.
I have a new novel coming out.
With a bitching cover.
It is a beautiful cover, isn't it?
Yeah,
I just saw that a couple of weeks ago. I saw that, and it was just... couldn't ask for anything nicer.
I would have to say it's heaps better than Losing the Peace.
Yeah. Losing the Peace, that cover fit the novel. I know that a lot of people didn't really like the cover, but I thought it fit the story.
Oh, I think it fit the story. I think the artwork left a lot to be desired, but unfortunately, I'm picky when it comes to that stuff. So
you don't want to know what we said to Swallow about his cover for Synthesis.
Yeah, he still has the book with the all-time worst cover ever, but there you go.
But The Shocks of Adversity is coming out. It's a Star Trek original series novel set in during the 5-year mission, and that's coming out the end of May, the June release from Pocket Books.
Well, this isn't the first time you've tackled the TOS crew, is it?
It's not the first time I've tackled the TOS crew. I had a short story in the 20th anniversary anthology Constellations.
Yeah.
And then I did a alternate history version of the TOS crew in Myriad Universes, which was my story, A Less Perfect Union.
So this is actually the first full-length novel you've done with them.
This is the first full-length novel I've done with the TOS crew, yes.
So tell me, did you have a blast?
It was fun. It was fun, getting, doing a real old-fashioned Star Trek episode. Who
was your favorite character to write?
I would have to say McCoy. McCoy's the one who can just, he can say anything that he wants to say with no filter.
He's everyone's moral guidepost.
He's the guidepost, and he's the one who'll just say, "This is crap, Jim."
And if we ever interview Diane Duane, I want to ask her, because McCoy figures very heavily into Rihansu. It seems like the authors have a lot of fun writing McCoy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, he's a kick of a character. There's no doubt about that. Now, having your favorite character to write aside in it, who do you think you really nailed as far as character is concerned? Because it doesn't necessarily have to be the same.
That is a good question. I think I would have to go with McCoy again because, it's a challenge to do these characters who are known so well and who have been around for 40-plus years. So, I mean, it's hard to say, it's hard to say that I captured any of them really well. I don't have enough of an ego to say that. But I think that the favorite lines that I wrote were McCoy's lines.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Now, one of the things that I enjoyed that you do as an author and that David Mack did when I read Losing the Peace was your annotations to it.
Mm-hmm.
How much, for something like Losing the Peace, which was a follow-on to Destiny and also A Singular Destiny, God, that was like a whole mini-series you guys all did.
It really was.
It was.
And now, because the research that you did when I was looking through the annotations and all of that, compare that to writing something like this totally original TOS novel that you've done, because with Losing the Peace, you were following on what David Mack had destroyed the universe yet again.
Right.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Oops.
Yeah, whoops. But just the process for doing something like a TOS novel compared to something in the, quote, modern, current Trek universe.
Completely different, because with Losing the Peace, I basically got the manuscripts for Destiny. I got the manuscript for the third book right after Dave finished writing it, so that I could then read it and I could carry on from his books and his trilogy in Losing the Peace. And then I had to read Keith's book, and I had to read Kirsten's... Did I read Kirsten? Yes, I did read Kirsten's Voyager book. Mm-hmm. And I read... who am I forgetting? Christopher. I had to read Christopher's
that's
Titan.
right, yeah.
Christopher Bennett, right.
Right. And then, of course, this was fairly early on in the Next Generation, quote, relaunch, unquote, where they decided, okay, we're going to go on from Nemesis and we're going to bring in some new characters and we're going to go forward with the Next Generation crew. So there was only 4 other books prior to Destiny at that point.
Oh,
and you had these brand new characters who had only been in 4 or less books at that point in time. So, I mean, that was great in that I got to, build a little bit with Catahoda, build a little bit with Jasmine, do a little bit of building with Triss.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, so, I mean, like you say, that was a whole lot of research, a whole lot of reading to make sure that everything was in line. Whereas with TOS, I was given the directive, this is going to be a standalone. And it's like, okay, it's going to be a standalone. And I just kind of came at it like it was just an episode.
I was going to say, did you find that freeing? Did it allow you to just kind of have more fun with it?
Yes. I mean, in one regard, yes. It was freeing in that I could, have fun with it. I could just invent the things that I needed to invent. The original series, when it was done in the 60s, there were little bits of continuity, but they were doing their own thing in each episode. Each episode was really self-contained. Right. There wasn't the arc that you have in modern television series. So yeah, in that regard, it was freeing. Of course, on the other hand, these characters are just so familiar to so many people that you can't go too far afield with them. You can't do something a little bit different with, a character that, who's original to the book series.
Or else let the hate mail begin. Yeah, I understand.
Or else let the hate mail begin, yes. I didn't have the option of just killing them off like David Mack does, so...
Don't worry, that question comes later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Terry, just a quick aside, where are you in Cold Equations?
3/4 of the way through book 1.
Oh, you gotta get to book 2.
Tell me about it. I know.
Oh, sorry,
hey.
Bill. Have you read the Cold Equations trilogy, Bill?
I have read the first book.
Oh, okay. Oh, so I can't say anything to you either. Oh.
Well, while you're writing a Trek book, you don't necessarily want to...
Yeah, good point. Well, at what point in the 5-year mission does your new novel take place?
It takes place between seasons 2 and 3.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so, I mean,
you get to reference stuff from the first 2 seasons then?
Right, I get to reference stuff from the first 2 seasons, and there are a few little references to some future events as well. So you have oblique references.
Very cool.
So there'll be a few Easter eggs for the next-gen fans.
Right on. According to my research, you wrote a story called The Trouble with Borg Tribbles.
I did.
Okay. You don't understand, William. We have a thing for Borg Tribbles, so we really need to know, what the heck is this about?
Yes.
The Trouble with Borg Tribbles. That was my story in Strange New Worlds 5. That won the 3rd place prize for that year's contest. And
congratulations.
Thank you. You know, how that came about was, back at that time, Dean Wesley Smith, who was the editor of the Strange New Worlds anthologies, was a regular on the AOL Trek boards, where myself and Dayton Ward and a whole bunch of the other Strange New Worlds writers and other fans were hanging out. And at one point, somebody posted a question to Dean: if somebody were to write a story about Borg Tribbles, would you accept that? And Dean said, well, if it was a good enough, his standard answer, well, if it was a good enough story, then yes, so I would have. And I read that question, and I rolled my eyes, and I said, Borg Tribbles, jeez Louise. And then, those weren't my exact words, but
and then your mind started railing, huh?
And then it stuck in the head. I started wondering, well, how would Tribbles become Borgified? And what would that do? And what would that do to the Borg if they were to assimilate Tribbles? And before you knew it, I had written a story about Borg Tribbles.
Wow.
Awesome.
And I had sent that in. And nobody was more surprised than I was that not only was it accepted, but it was one of the prize stories.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Star Trek Online, for, I would say, the better part of a couple years now, has had Borg Tribbles
in the game.
Yes, the Tribble of Borg.
I think we just surprised him.
I think we shocked him.
That was almost a spit take. Yeah.
We've had Borg Tribbles in the game. Yeah, they're actually a pet.
And if you pet it before you fight the Borg, it helps with resistance to the Borg and assimilation and all of that. And instead of purring every now and then when you pet it, you get the old dial-up sound.
The dial-up, the saxophone sound?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
When you said that, I imagined a ship crewed by Borg Tribbles going around.
You know what, Mike? We got to find a picture of Triple Borg and send it to him.
Sure, I'll look for one now. It actually inspired seeing the Borg Tribble. It actually inspired us to. I also produce a audio drama called Gates of Sto-vo-kor. It's a Klingon podcast taking place within Star Trek Online's universe.
Okay.
And in one of our episodes, we had a Borg Tribble fall prey and give birth to a cannibal Tribble. So, kind of a weird genetic thing, but I never even knew that was a story. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now we're on a mission to get William the Borg Tribble information from Stowe. I think everybody over at Cryptic would love to... would love to get the artwork.
Do you miss Strange New Worlds because of people like yourself and Date and others that we know? It launched your careers and being able to write like this.
Yes, definitely. It was, like you say, so many people had come out of that. Not only like Dayton and myself who have gone on to do other Trek, but people like Ilsa Bick, who's just had a great career in in YA fiction. Julie Hizzy, who's doing mysteries regularly now. It was a great market for beginning writers getting their first professional sale. So
right.
I mean, it was really one of the top paying markets. I think they paid better than Asimov or Analog for their stories. So yeah, and I'm really sorry that there's not more of the opportunity anymore for new people to come into the Trek fold.
Oh,
Did I reconnect?
Yeah, we couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to see that, just because, to be honest with you, I think it was always the downfall of some of even the television shows was the closing of the doors to outside ideas and scripts.
Yeah, I would not disagree with that.
It doesn't hurt to have an open creativity pool, that's for sure. What was your favorite thing about the Strange New Worlds, anthologies? Besides, of course, having your stories win. And
yeah, that was a big part of it, of course. But I did my 3 and out after 5, but I kept following it. I kept buying the anthology every year, all the way through the end, and it was, just an outlet for creativity. They don't, and I'm really sorry they don't do more short stories in the Trek universe anymore because, there are ideas that don't belong in a full-length novel or, they're not enough to fill a full-length novel. There are lots of stories that can be told in that, 5,017 or 7,500 word format. And I really think that, I really feel that there should be a market for it. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not the financial guy, so.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. Anybody asks me about what was it that got me into reading Star Trek, I will tell everybody it was, without a doubt, the short stories. It was at first the Strange New Worlds. I tripped across one of the books at a bookstore. I just happened to kind of look at it and think, wow, this is great. It's short reading, easy for me to commit to a story while I'm on the train, because this is when I was commuting by train.
Right. Yeah.
And it was an easy thing for me to be able to close up without feeling like, when you're in the middle of a novel, sometimes, you scream when you close the book. And then what sent me over the edge were the Captain's Tables short stories, and absolutely fell in love with Trek Lit. And that's when I bought my first set of novels after the Captain's. The short stories, I think, are really good for the new readers to the Star Trek universe. And it's always a shame to think that they're really not producing a lot of those anymore. So
yeah, it really is.
Yeah, this is kind of two thoughts that I had unrelated to each other, so I'm just going to mash them into one because it's what I do. One, excuse me a minute. Oh, sorry. The temperature here, it's been going between
warm.
The 30s and the 60s.
Yeah.
So it's just, crazy. One, in Losing the Peace, Nan Bako, big part of that, and I love Nan Bako. I campaigned for her last election in November. I'm so glad she won again. And so, did you enjoy writing her? Because she's such a fun character to read. And the other is, the other thought I had was, you know what, and I just had a...
You just lost it?
Yeah, I did.
Should I answer the first one while you think of the second one?
That'll work.
Because I'll think of it as you're saying it, and then I'll go, oh, yeah, this is it. Yeah,
So did you enjoy writing Nan Bako?
Yeah. I mean, I only had the one scene with Nan Bako, and, it would have been fun to have done a little bit more with her, but the one scene that I wrote with her was fun, yes.
It's just that's such a part of Star Trek that I'm glad that is in there is that whole...
The political
side, yeah. And that, because some of my favorite reading lately has been in reading about that side of it. Terry, go ahead, because I'm still trying to remember. I really should write things down.
Well, I guess I can sit down and say, in Losing the Peace, the TNG crew is my favorite. It's my favorite show. It's the one that I connect to the most. Yes, I was alive when TOS first ran, but I was very young. And, of course, I got my fill of it through reruns, as most of us did. However, TNG was one of those ones that really kind of stuck with me, and I've always been kind of a stickler for how people write women. Do you find it difficult to write for, the women in the TNG books, namely Crusher?
I find that I am always cognizant of the fact that I am a man and I'm writing this woman, and am I writing this woman as a man, or am I writing this woman as an actual fully fledged character? Mm-hmm. It's something that I'm very conscious of. When I was writing Crusher, I was doing, the flashback scenes with Crusher, and when I was doing, Miranda Catahoda and her familial concerns, so it's...
Right, which were great.
Thank you.
They really were. It was very, very interesting to see. And also, I think it also helps put the reader into a perspective of just, not the least, how big space is. So do you ever kind of, who do you bounce most of your ideas off of?
I don't do a lot of idea bouncing. I'm very much a in my own brain while I'm writing type of person.
Okay.
Every so often I'll shoot an email off to Dayton Ward or Scott Pearson and say, or David Mack, if it's, somebody that's just say, I'm thinking about this. Does this, how does this sound? Does this make sense to you? That kind of thing. Did a lot of that with Losing the Peace when I was building off of what Dave had done, and when I was, pretty much collaborating with the other three as they were writing their follow-ups. But, in general, I'm very much a inside my own brain type of writer.
Now, you've written things outside of the Star Trek world, correct?
I have written stuff outside of the Star Trek world. I had a story in the Rideos Divine Tales anthology, which came out last year, which was created by Bob Greenberger and Aaron Rosenberg, and has a whole bunch of other Trek veteran writers who were involved with that. I don't know if you've had other guests talk about that previously?
Actually, we have not, so please.
You have not? Let me tell you about it. Let me pitch this. Rideos is a shared universe that Bob Greenberger, Aaron Rosenberg, and Paul Cooperberg had formulated, where all of the gods of ancient cultures have all come back, all at once, all at the same time. The Greeks, the Norse, the gods of Native America, the gods of Asia have all come back and said, we're back, start worshiping us now.
Oh.
And basically throw the entire world for a loop.
A divine smackdown. And, of course, you got all these different pantheons who are back in the world again, and they're smacking each other around as well.
I was gonna say, and I bet they don't get along, do they?
They don't get along all that well.
Wait a minute, is this the thing Kelly's also writing for?
This is the thing that Kelly is writing for in the next volume that's coming out, I believe, in May.
How awesome.
And for those that don't know, we're talking about author Kelly Medding, author of the Meta Wars and Dreg City series.
Right.
A good friend.
Yeah, so the volume that came out last summer at Shore Leave is Divine Tales, and this kind of like an introduction to this new world. There's another volume that's coming out later this spring. Beyond Borders is the title of that, and that's going to be the gods as they influence the world beyond America. And then there's supposed to be a third volume that's coming out in the fall that I am currently writing a story for that one as well.
Very cool.
What a hoot.
So tell us what A Year Without Santa Claus is like.
My story in the first volume was The Year Without a Santa Claus. It was the lead-off story, and it takes place, the gods all come back in the year 2012, and my story picks up just a few weeks before the Mayan apocalypse, 12/21/12. Mm-hmm. And of course, this was written before we knew that the world would not end. It's kind of canceled out by that, but anyhow, so it's leading up to 12/21/12, which was also, of course, 4 days before Christmas, which one of the major holidays of the Christian faith, and also one of the biggest secular holidays, which has this, very magical figure at the center of it, Santa Claus. Right. And so, my story was kind of an introduction to the universe, just in the first couple of months after the transformation, and where people are starting to see the Mayan apocalypse as something that's going to change the game all over again. And they don't know exactly how, whether it's going to be the second coming or whether it's going to be something else. And this is combined with Christmas, which is the season of miracles. So it was just real fun to just get into this universe that had just changed, and people aren't really sure how much has changed, how much of their old worlds is staying the same. So it was a real kick to write that.
I bet. How did he approach? Did he just kind of call you and say, we're doing this?
He kind of just called me and said, I guess this was an idea that they had been kicking around for a couple of years, trying to figure out how to do it. And it's done through the Crazy Crazy 8 Press, which is
Oh.
Bob Berger and Peter David and, a whole group of people with Trek connections. They set up their own independent press, e-publishing concern, and they decided, well, now that we have this publishing concern, we can put something together, and they decided, let's put an anthology together, get it out for shore leave this past August. So they just sent out an email to myself and a bunch of other people with Star Trek connections and people that they know, and said, we're doing this. We got a very tight deadline. This was like 2 months before they wanted to have the book actually out. And
wow.
Yeah, that was really just, when I first read it, I was like, wow, can I really write a story in that short of time? But I did, and that was a real great experience just for myself, just to show myself what I could do once I just turned off my inner editor and said, just write it. Just write it.
Good advice. Now, I do have a question. On average, how long does it take you to crank out a story?
It depends on whether there's somebody who's actually waiting for it, or whether I'm the only one who is saying, I want to get this done, but I also want to watch what I've got on the next. So I'll write a couple of sentences and let's go watch television for a while.
So the deadline really motivates you.
The deadline is a wonderful motivator. Yes.
Good to know.
I mean,
I wouldn't disagree with that.
How long does it take you typically to write something? The Shocks of Adversity, it took me 4 months from the go-ahead to when I turned in the manuscript. And, like the short story, the Radio short story, that was like 6 weeks.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, I noticed in your nonfiction credits, you have a piece called John Frederick Paxton.
Yes.
In the nonfiction piece, so I'm interested.
It appeared in Star Trek Magazine,
yes.
No less. So.
Yes, that appeared in Star Trek Magazine. They did a feature, 10 top villains of Star Trek, and John Frederick Paxton was number 10 on that list.
Should have been higher. I thought he was a great villain.
He was a good villain. I mean, he was a little bit like a Bond villain. With his flying moon base and his minions all in the same uniforms who are willing to do his bidding.
That is such a great analogy. He is a Bond villain.
He just needed a cat to pet.
Exactly.
He just needed a cat.
That's actually the point I made in my article. The cat was the only thing he missed to make himself an actual Bond villain. But, of course, the thing about Paxton is that, and I made the comparison going back, there was the scene in that two-parter where he's watching Colonel Green give a speech about, we must purge the impure from our society in order to, rebuild our society after this terrible Third World War.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very much in line with what he was doing. We have to get rid of the alien influence on Earth. And, it's a direct line from that back to Hitler. We have to get rid of the Jews to make our society. And so, Paxton is very much an archetype. That type of person seems to come up in the real world and in Star Trek fiction. And it really speaks, it's a reflection of the darker side of humanity, that we always have, that there's always an other. And there's always somebody who says, those others are the ones who are keeping everybody else down. We have to marginalize them. We have to get rid of them. That's a really very Star Trek thing, to recognize that we do that as a human race, and that's something that we need to stop doing, and we need to be inclusive if we are going to progress as a species.
And sometimes that's an interesting moral to get through to some people.
I deal with that with Terry all the time. You have no idea the hatred bubbling inside her.
I am such a horrible, horrible, evil bitch.
That's what it says on our G&T card business shows that she had business cards. Hers says horrible, horrible, evil bitch underneath her name.
Right under the boot symbol, that's right.
And it's amazing the amount of guys that line up for that card.
Yeah, but I charge them double. So, okay, where was I? Oh, yeah, sorry. I know. I'm a bad girl. what is it that drew you into writing Star Trek to begin with? I mean, I know that you said that you were part of the Trek boards on AOL, which, I remember those boards. And it kills me that I didn't know you then.
AOL email address.
So do I. I still have my original email address.
I refuse to part with it. I'm too attached to it.
I know. I actually work for them now, so go figure.
It works. Oh.
After that, she's going to work for Walmart.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually get a paycheck from them. Go figure. It's very odd. But what was it about, Star Trek that drew you to the boards? Was it because you were a fan and you wanted to talk to other people? Was it just part of the message board, or was it like a writing group that you were talking to?
Well, what had happened, I went to college and I started writing screenplays in college. I started writing for the college television station at college. That was the first really big break that I got where I, did a piece of writing and somebody said, wow, this is really good. And so I had some scripts produced for my college television station. And from there I said, wow, this is great. I think I would like to write for television. And so after graduation, I did my spec scripts. I did some, sitcom spec scripts. I wrote a screenplay, tried to get an agent out in Hollywood. But I was still living in Rochester, New York. And basically the agents out in Los Angeles were saying, well, you're not here in Los Angeles. So I basically got nothing back from them at that point. And so after a while, at that time, Next Generation and Deep Space Nine were accepting spec scripts without agents.
Without agents. That's right.
So I said, well, I'll write a spec script for Deep Space Nine. Did that, sent that through their submission program, and then they gave me a call saying, how would you like to come out and pitch?
Nice.
And so, yes. So I flew out to Los Angeles and met with Rene Echevarria, and I pitched my story ideas, and he went, nope, we already have something too close to that. Nope, we already have something too close to that. Nope, we already have something too close to that. Thanks for coming in.
Oh, what a shame.
But they said, you're certainly welcome to try a pitch again, and didn't fly out. I did phone pitches then on out, so I pitched a couple more times for Deep Space Nine, pitched a couple times for Voyager. Didn't get very far with that, but at that point, I had also, got connected on America Online, had found the message boards, and found the fan fiction community through there.
Right.
So I said, well, maybe I could write one of my script ideas as a prose story. And so did that, wrote a few of those, got some of those into the fan fiction magazines that were actually printed on paper at that time.
Yep.
And it was after I'd been doing that for a couple of years, that's when the Strange New Worlds contest started up.
Got it.
And the rest is history.
Now, were you kind of drawn into Star Trek because of that? Or had you kind of already known what Star Trek was before you even decided to start pitching scripts?
No, I was a Star Trek fan from early on, age 10, watching it in reruns on Channel 10 at 7 o'clock on Saturday nights. Then when Next Generation debuted, I was in the television lounge at my college campus an hour at a time so that I made sure that there was nobody else who was going to try to watch something else on that screen.
And that's where you were matriculating. That's right, matriculating.
That's where I was matriculating.
And for those that don't get that, and if you read the annotations to Losing the Peace, that's like one of the things I remember from that. Yeah, that's right, matriculating.
Out of curiosity, where'd you go to school?
Ithaca College.
Okay.
Ithaca, New York.
And Ithaca, of course, is the fabled Greek that flew too close to the sun. And
nope.
I was waiting for somebody to cut me off.
No, I was going to let you bury yourself. I'm sorry.
I was setting it up. Oh. Welcome to the G&T show, where obviously we have no script.
Oh, that's great.
I have a question. You had mentioned earlier that short stories aren't aren't really being turned into collections anymore. And that how you had gotten your start was by frequenting fan fiction communities online. Do you think that is still a really relevant way to network with people and to share and possibly even get your stories, seen by the general public? Is the internet still the best place to get short story content, in your opinion?
At this point in time, yes. Remember that, I was networking on the internet in the fan fiction community, but at that point, fan fiction was still on paper. So, there is a larger online fan fiction community than I ever got involved in.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was online, it was basically just AOL, which was, back in the 90s, AOL was the internet.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, I mean, there's more than I could even imagine going out and exploring. But I think that in this day and age, with the rise of e-reading and with, the internet being a whole lot bigger than it was 20 years ago, and, people with their tablets and their smartphones being able to read on there, I think that the internet is a much bigger place, a much better place to get your short fiction. But then, of course, there's the issue of signal to noise and quality control and finding the gems among the dross. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's always going to be a good place for the new people who are learning the craft of writing to get that start and get the feedback from, people of the like mind and people who are, in the same position that they are in. So I definitely think that internet fan fiction is a huge thing.
What advice can you give to aspiring writers on tricks to learn how to deal with constructive criticism?
Tricks to deal with constructive criticism. Well, I mean, the first trick is to recognize what is constructive criticism and what is just criticism. I mean, I read some, I know that most authors say, you shouldn't do this, but I do go and I occasionally read the reviews that are left for my things.
Uh-huh.
And, well, this author obviously was doing that. No. Some criticism is just people taking a great big steaming dump on you just because they're behind a keyboard and they can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people who will give criticism or, here's where I think that the story succeeds, here's where I think it needs work. Finding somebody who is going to actually give you constructive criticism is a very rare thing and something that you really should accept. Dealing with those people, you just have to recognize the people who are just, you have to recognize.
Did you have any problems building up the thicker skin, especially because the internet has also wrought upon us just a mountain of people who think of them, a mountain of people who don't know how to criticize constructively. Yeah. In other words, the hate mail. And how do you build up a thicker skin in that regard? Or do you just kind of not read your reviews?
I try to avoid it. Every once in a while I give in to the temptation, and just a matter of saying, just recognizing what is not worthy of your time and thought. When it's obvious that, of course I'm using the word obvious against these people as well, so you just have to, a bad review hurts no matter what,
Yeah.
I mean, when I go online and I see the 1-star review for the ebook because, well, why did they price the ebook for $1.99 instead of 99 cents? And it's like, that has nothing to do with me. Why punish me with a 1-star review? But you just...
We can, some of us can relate.
Yeah.
Some of us are Foundry authors. We tell our own stories, create our own missions within Star Trek Online, and they have a star reviewing system. And some of us get dinged for things that are completely outside of the realm of our control.
Yeah.
The bugs in the actual system,
Right.
in the game system, not the story content or anything like that.
Right.
Exactly.
And, I know, not against you, Terry, but there have been reviews that said, I didn't like the cover for Losing the Peace. They put the tips on the right side of the collar.
Well, See, no, at least I didn't go in and say that 1-star.
But
I know that the cover has absolutely nothing to do with the inside of the book, and I can tell you that, synthesis proved that to me beyond a shadow of a doubt. So
you just have to go, Okay. Okay, fine. That's fine. You have your opinion, and I'm not going to pay any attention to it.
I'll say this because with her weekly column, Terry has her own stalkers who believe they live inside her head and know what she's thinking.
Yes.
It's amazing that way, isn't it? Isn't it amazing how somebody knows who we are by what we write? Yeah.
It's obvious that this author...
I know, it's true.
One of my favorite things I've read was, the author writes the curtain is blue. The teacher is like, what does the blue represent? It represents, the protagonist's state of mind and blah, 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 blah. The author says, no, I just wanted to make the curtains blue. It's my favorite color.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The way I read it was the author, the curtains were fucking blue.
Yeah. Now, are you... go ahead, Terry.
I was going to say, so when does the next book come out? When does...
The Shocks of Adversity comes out the end of May.
So, and it can be pre-ordered now on Amazon, correct?
It can be pre-ordered at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all booksellers nationwide.
Get on an order, people, and if you pre-order now, we'll throw in a Buck Mackay rookie card.
There you go. Got the official G&T show stamp of approval with that one.
No kidding. It'll take Nick about 5 minutes for his voice to come back after that.
Now, are you a fan of Inside the Actors Studio?
I have seen the occasional episode. Yes.
Well, I'm a big fan, and I think James Lipton is an amazing man. This is leading somewhere. Stay with me. One of his best friends was George Plimpton, which is an amazing thing, really. I mean, how cool is that? Can you imagine, George Plimpton being one of your best friends?
No.
And you realize 90% of our audience is scratching their head saying, who?
Who's he? Isn't he like Paper Tiger guy?
That's him.
Thank you. Yay, got it.
He was much more than...
Sorry.
Terry, this is why on the Defiant you were killed, okay?
Because I knew who George Plimpton was? Please.
No, because you were like, isn't that the Paper Tiger guy? Which leads 90% of our audience or more, again, to be like, what's Paper Tiger?
Well, that's the whole thing. Now they have to go find out. Google it, people.
Sorry, we just traced... Oh, by the way, Bill, if you look on your Skype there, we've enclosed the link to the Tribble of Borg photo.
Okay.
I know. Now I have to look and see. I love the Borg Tribbles. They're very cute.
Okay, here's a link. Oh, my gosh.
So when
Aren't they lovely?
They are.
Again, when you need a particular buff against the Borg or playing against the Borg in the game, you whip out the Borg Tribble and you pet it. And it makes all sorts of fun electronic noises. It's very cute. Okay.
Terry has a Tribble named Trelane.
I do have a Tribble named Trelane.
The reason I had asked about James Lipton is we have our own version of the James Lipton questionnaire that he asks.
Oh, okay.
Now, I'm going to add one of my own on this, but Terry, you get to ask the Dayton Ward question this week.
The Dayton Ward question. Go ahead.
Does this mean I get to curse for 10 minutes now?
Yes.
Sure. He threatened our life if we
like.
ever asked him this question, so of course it was the first question we asked him.
Right. Which is, where do you get your ideas?
We lost him.
And then we lost him.
I'm trying to decide whether I want to give a serious answer or whether I take the
Don't
piss
worry
out
about
of
it.
you. Or
James Swallow threatened to cut my spleen out for that question, so, it's okay.
I mean, my favorite answer, I think, was Keith the Canada, who said, yeah, I got it off, they fell off a truck in the alley out back.
We'll take that answer and run with it.
That's my favorite answer. That's the favorite answer I've heard given to it.
That's awesome.
Now, as a Trek author and a longtime fan, this question I just came up with, but I'm going to throw it in there, and Terry, I may add it to the official.
Okay, cool.
Romulans or Klingons, and why Romulans?
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I almost spit across the room on that one. Okay.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Romulans or Klingons, and why Romulans?
Why Romulans?
It's a loaded question, in other words.
Because they're easier to ignore.
Oh! Now you shut Nick down. It's okay.
Dinatra's still cooler than any Klingon ever.
Yeah. I don't know. Kalar was pretty hot.
Yeah, she's no Dinatra.
Okay.
I'm definitely a Klingon guy.
There's no substance to them.
Oh, please.
Bajorans are so much cooler.
Ugh.
Ugh.
Was that an anti-Bajoran ugh?
No, that was no.
Yeah, that was that was him and me both rolling my eyes at you. There you go.
Right.
So
First of these questions.
That was the verbal roll of the eyes.
The verbal roll of the eyes. That's right.
Okay. First question from this list. You're the captain of a starship in the Star Trek universe. What's the name of your starship? The USS.
Hammarskjöld.
Wasn't that Rammstein's third album?
Dag Hammarskjöld was a Nobel Peace Laureate.
Love it.
And Secretary General of the UN. I named the first opportunity I had to name a starship in Star Trek fiction. That was the name that I used. It was in my Corps of Engineers story, and it was also in my Losing the Peace, and so that's the name.
Cool. What did he win his Nobel Prize for?
Peace, I think he said.
Oh.
Yeah, he was Secretary General of the United Nations, and
okay.
I don't know I don't know if there was a specific act, but
it was a peace prize.
It was a peace prize, yes.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds appropriate. Awesome.
Nick?
Okay. Which is your favorite Trek series?
Which is my favorite Trek series? Deep Space Nine.
Told you he was awesome.
I grew up watching TOS, and I loved Next Generation, but Deep Space Nine just hit it out of the park.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
If you could be any I should try and do it like James Lipton. If you could be any species in Trek other than human, which species would you be? Tribble.
No.
Not a tribble, no. That's
Unless it's a Borg tribble.
Not a Borg tribble either. That would be cool, but no. Boy, oh boy.
Yeah. See, I can't think of one either.
I'm not even sure where I would go with that. Let's go Beta Z, just so I could attend naked weddings.
There you go. Woohoo!
Good answer.
It's kind of the same reason why I chose Ryzian. I was like, oh yeah.
That's really a double-edged sword, though.
True.
I mean,
not everybody.
Do you really want to see Dayton at his wedding? You know.
No, that wouldn't be the word.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
If you were given an opportunity to write an open-ended series based on one character in Trek, who would it be?
An open-ended series on one character. Now that's a huge question.
You got to take one character and go with it. Yeah.
One character and go with it. Wow.
I know. I love it when they're thinking.
Because I have to pick from 40 years of history now.
Yeah,
it's true.
And then you've got secondary characters like Garrick, or even main character like Dukat you can choose from.
You know what I would do? I would take Zephyrin Cochrane.
Interesting. I like it.
I
like that.
There is a lot of missing story in his life.
I would do his 21st century life, and then when I ran to the end of that, I would do his 23rd century life.
Oh, that'd be great.
Nice.
Very cool.
And all that time, he really changed how he looked. That really had an effect on him.
Plus his character changed. I mean...
It really did, yeah.
Yeah, he sobered up.
There was a huge personality change in there that would be wonderful to explore.
Personally, I liked him better in the 21st century.
I would like that. That's actually a really, really good idea.
That is interesting.
Kudos.
And
and
the Roy Orbison soundtrack to that, of course.
Awesome.
Roy Orbison. Sorry.
Yeah, no kidding.
What author's books, aside from your own, do you run out to get when they're released?
Well, I wouldn't get my own books.
I was just going to say, I know you run out to get... You run out could also mean go to Amazon and pre-order.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I would not put my own books in that category, even if I wasn't me. I'm going to say Dayton Ward.
Ooh. Oh.
And it isn't fucking... I'm sorry?
See, you heard, Nick and Dayton, they get a thrill off of verbally abusing each other. So,
Well, no, Bill, you were there when it was when I first met you all. You were there when I first met Dayton.
Oh yes. I remember the Marine and Army
See, Terry? It was awesome.
oil and water.
Marco had to get in between us. You know, it was.
It lives on the G&T show.
it surely does.
Every week.
We don't let anybody say anything bad about Dayton's service. I'll kick some ass.
But aside from being a jarhead, leatherneck, whatever else, I mean, the guy can write.
Oh yeah.
Agreed.
And just imagine though if Kevin's talent hadn't rubbed off on him.
Yeah. Again, I just sit here and roll my eyes.
Oh my!
Is there a genre you haven't?
Go
ahead.
No, I was just worried about the Kevin rubbing on Dayton joke that you were implying.
Wow, I hadn't even thought of that. I must be tired.
And I'm sorry that I told you.
I really hope it doesn't involve rat tail butt plugs.
No, that's with Mac.
That's right. That's Kevin and David Mack. That's right.
No,
no,
an awful lot of
about the
jokes
genre.
going
I was
here.
just going to ask, so go for it.
Is there a genre you haven't written for or published but would love to try?
Well, I am writing a historical fantasy right now, so that's something I would like to have published. Something that I would like to try to write would be a pulp mystery type of a Mickey Spillane type of story.
That's interesting because
Red Alert?
A few other.
Following what David Gerald said last week.
Yeah, a few authors have mentioned wanting to write mystery.
And Kevin too.
Mm-hmm.
I smell it.
It's a good club. It's a good club. Let me tell you.
You should talk to Crazy 8 about you guys all doing some short stories, pulpy.
That'd be very cool.
That
That would be cool.
All right.
Do you have a favorite adjective? Do you overuse it? And is there an adjective you loathe?
It doesn't have to be, I was going to say, it doesn't necessarily have to be an adjective per se. If there is a word that you catch yourself overusing a lot, and this
there
is a
are
question
words that I catch myself overusing a lot. And of course, now that I'm put on the spot, I can't remember.
Apparently.
Of course is a phrase that I find myself just putting in. Of course, the door opened the wrong way, and I catch myself putting that into my manuscript. Is like, what do you mean? Of course, that doesn't. What were the other parts that's my least favorite and the one that it bothers me the most, and my most
What's your
favorite adjective?
Yeah.
Oh, let's say Stygian.
Okay, let's.
Just because it.
Oh, I thought you never mind.
Just because I know David Mack will get a kick out of that.
Now, here's the big one. Here's the coup de grace. If you were given the green light to kill a major Star Trek canon character, which character would you pick?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Well, after seeing what happened to Kirsten Beyer, I don't know that I would want to go too high up the food chain.
Oh, who was it? Who was it that said Kirk to us? Or Picard? No, David Mack said Picard.
David Mack said Picard, yeah.
Well, David had to pick just one character to kill off.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, he's so used to killing off planets.
If I could kill off any one major character, boy oh boy.
Now, give them the send-off that you think they deserve.
Give them.
Come on, you want to kill Worf.
Killing Picard would probably result in the best story.
Probably right.
Yeah. Well, at this point,
there's no character that I would kill just out of spite.
Now, at this point, though, could you argue that killing Crusher could also come from the best story because of the marriage and the baby and all of that and the effects it would have on Picard?
Killing off the female spouse is just... I think we've gone to that well too many times.
Almost cliche.
Almost cliche, yes.
But could you say in Trek, though, it's been the other way?
Everybody's dad dies in Trek.
That's true. You know what would be killing Wesley would be cool. Killing the Traveler killing Wesley, not the Will Wheaton of 20 years ago, but the cool Will Wheaton of today, and just giving him a really dramatic, fitting, major sacrifice death to say, Wesley
grew out the awkward stage. And
Wesley saved the day once again, but he did it in the best way possible.
Evil Will Wheaton.
Bravo.
From Big Bang Theory.
What was that, Nick?
Killing evil Will Wheaton from Big Bang Theory.
Have Sheldon over his body.
Well, that was it. I think.
His head up by the hair.
I think that was our last question.
That is the last one. Yep. Terry, did you have anything you would like to add?
Actually, no. I just want to thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time, on a middle of the week night, and allowing our listeners to kind of allow us to pick your brain on what it's like to write for Star Trek and write for other genres as well. And we invite you back anytime you feel free to drop by.
Yeah,
You're very welcome, and thank you for having me. It was a fun evening.
Michael, anything?
Just to mirror what Terry had to say, thank you very much. Been a pleasure talking with you, and you're welcome back anytime.
Again, everybody, you can pre-order William Leisner's new book, The Shocks of Adversity, which is a TOS novel, which comes out at the end of May. It is published by Pocket, and go ahead. Pre-order, because the more books we order, the more we can keep these people employed, the more Star Trek we get to read.
And if you want to buy them a drink, sure, leave.
Oh, that's a good question. Do you have plans or possible plans of ever getting to a creation event out in Las Vegas, maybe?
That I have not planned on. I will be at Shore Leave again this August. Great. But that's really the only con that I really go to.
Well, then we'll definitely sick Nick on you then, and
if somebody wants to pay my way to Vegas,
One of these days we're going to get Pocket back to the point where they'll send everybody, and that's our goal. To have one big party in Vegas one year.
Well, good luck with that goal.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we will be attending Vegas. We have a booth, and it's going to be a fun time. So you're welcome to stop by if you're in the area.
I'll do that.
And I will see you at Shore Leave, my friend.
See you there.
And thank you all for joining us for this G&T Supplemental with author William Leisner. Joel Untrue.
Kapla.
Joel Untrue.
Music for the G&T show is provided by Warp 11, Grethor, 5 Year Mission, and Andrew Allen's Smooth Federation.